Welcome to Who Are You, a CSI podcast. I am Lauren, and I've seen CSI through and through around 3 to 4 times.
And I'm Nick, and this is my first time experiencing these episodes.
And today we are reviewing season 2, episode 10, Ellie. I keep wanting to say Eli for whatever reason when I see the title of it, and I'm like, it's Ellie. Ellie, original air date December 6, 2001. Director is Charles Correll. Writer is, the only writer is Anthony E. Zeiker.
Oh, wow.
Usually it's Anthony Zeiker plus at least one other person, generally speaking, two other people, but at least according to IMDb, just Anthony Zeiker today. So
nice.
Curious. All right. So we start with some shots of the Vegas Strip and some rock music.
Yeah.
I was like, ooh, we're rocking out to begin this episode. So Nick, what is our Vegas score for this episode?
So, first off, this is one of 7 times we're going to see the Las Vegas Strip this episode.
Oh my gosh. I guess I didn't, because you obviously pay more attention to this than I do, because I'm trying to take notes on, what's happening in the episode that I tend to, tune out the intermediary things, but that is hilarious.
So, not even counting, shots inside of a casino, talking about opening a new casino later on in the episode, or all those other things that are also very casino-y and Vegas-y.
Yeah.
There is a legitimate, 7 scenes, 10 shots, and 30-something seconds of the Las Vegas Strip. We hit the 55 of the maximum 55 Las Vegas score.
Oh my goodness!
This is probably the most Vegas we've seen in any episode, including the first season. There was a point where I was like, oh, we're at 55 for sure now. And then there were still 2 more scenes of the Las Vegas Strip. I was jaw dropped agape with oh my God. We were just talking about trying to fill time last episode.
They just filled it with Vegas this time.
They
didn't fill it with random scenes. They just here's more shots of Vegas. You like this, right? Yeah.
There's a commercial and a half worth of Las Vegas.
That is amazing.
Strip scenes.
That is so good. Yeah. All right. So first ever 55
LV score.
LV score goes to Ellie and not Eli. So
yes.
We then go to the Strip, out on the sidewalks, and this couple spots a befuddled looking man who Nick and I talked about this before we started recording. We both thought the befuddled looking man, soon to be revealed as a con artist, was a Spot the Guest Star. Not a Spot the Guest Star. He just looks
we thought they were the same person.
Yes.
We thought they were the same person.
But it's not him.
Supernatural star Misha Collins, who plays, I forget what the angel's name is, but many seasons of that show.
Yes.
And on and again, off again.
Yes.
But yeah, it looks very similar.
But it's not him.
And
just so our listeners know, not him. I checked on the IMDb being sweet, I'm going to have a Spot the Guest Star. And then I was like, it's not a Spot. He has no other credits. Really.
There is a Spot the Guest Star around the corner.
Ooh, okay. All right. So this befuddled man is telling this couple that he's barred from the casinos. He can't cash his chips. Would they be willing to cash his chips? But, they have to make him feel better and leave a deposit. So they agree to leave $2,000 with the con artist to then go cash his chips. So they go inside the casino. Crazy enough, chips are worthless. Not worth a thing. Cannot be converted into mulas.
Our cashier is our Spot the Guest Star.
Oh my gosh, this is totally left field for me. Who is this cashier?
Oh, you've already said his name once today. It's Anthony E. Zeiker.
Oh my gosh,
creator of the show.
That's amazing!
Who I recognized because I watched his TED Talk when we were first talking about...
Anthony E. Zeiker, casino cashier. Not that I doubted you, but
I kept being who is this guy? I'll look at the end. He's in the first credits card. It says, starring cashier Anthony E. Zeiker. I went, oh my God, yeah, that's who it was. I know him from his TED Talk. He was 20 years older than he is in this thing. But he's in and then on the rewatch, I was like, he's in this Hawaiian shirt. He's having a grand old time.
He's a great time. Yeah. He's the only writer on this episode.
He's got 3-4 lines.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he has quite a few, for a bit part. It's not a fleeting bit part. It's that is amazing. So Anthony Zeiker is our first Spot the Guest Star.
You're only one writer on this episode, right? I was like, oh yeah, I've noticed that.
Wait a second.
I guess he wrote himself right
into this episode. Crazy enough. So
I thought you were going to say he was the director actually at first.
No, Charles Correll. So the couple goes back outside. Con man gone, but they hear a gunshot. This brings us to Jim Brass and Grissom on the scene. They're talking about how the victim was running the chip scam, and we learn that the couple, at least for now, are the Ortons from Florida. Yeah. But there's no surveillance in the garage, so, they're going to have to do some good old CSI work to solve this one, because this isn't going to be a quick, easy, just pull the footage sort of solve here. We go to credits. We return to Grissom, but now he's in the hallway at HQ. This is another episode with fillers, so they filled it to be 55 LV score. Yeah, he randomly tells Greg Sanders to turn off punk rock music for literally no other reason in the episode.
I thought it was going to have something to do with the cockroaches, and then he leaves.
No, it has literally nothing to do with anything. He just goes into Greg Sanders, who's like, and as someone who has to be listening to something to work, generally podcasts, but I need to have something in the background for me to actually focus on what I'm working on. Mm-hmm. Why are you doing this, Greg Sanders? He just needs background music to be able to do his thing. So then he almost bumps into Greg. Well, no, sorry, not Greg. Grissom almost bumps into Catherine. He has cockroaches. He's going to be cockroach raging at this event that he's going to. He's also going to be presenting
but like way more convention.
Yeah, but way more important, it's the cockroach racing. And so Catherine originally is supposed to take over the shift, but she is going to be on a plane to Reno, so she can't. Which transitions us.
Why is she there? Why is he there? Well, I know why he's there. He's there because it's to pass the buck.
Yeah.
But, not for nothing.
Yeah, I don't stop in my work on my way to vacation. I just go on vacation.
Would you love it if your boss showed up and let you know that day that he was leaving?
No.
And not going to be there that day and that you're in charge now?
No. Again, Grissom has a horrible track record as a manager, and he continues. He forgets that Catherine put in, reminded him multiple times that she was going to Reno.
Does she need to? Because he apparently doesn't.
Yeah. So we go to Grissom, showcasing his horrible management skills with Warwick. They're in the locker room, and Warwick is going to be acting supervisor, which you can tell that Warwick is fairly uncomfortable with this idea. This isn't something that he's like, yeah, boss, I can't wait. Let me at it. You could tell that he has reservations and he has concerns. And then just to cherry on the Sunday of Grissom being a terrible manager, he didn't tell Nick or Sarah that he chose Warwick.
No.
To be the supervisor. Leaves that for Warwick to do. Why should Grissom bother? Does not his problem now, because he's going to be racing cockroaches or something.
It's first job as supervisor. Tell people you're supervisor.
Yep. So we head on over to Nick and Sarah. They're on the scene. They're taking pictures. They're collecting evidence. Warwick pulls up. He starts giving orders, which then causes some tension, especially from Sarah. Nick seems pretty okay with it. Sarah's really the one that is not super great with the idea that Warwick is going to be acting supervisor for the shift. But that does not deter Warwick from going with the body. He meets with Doc Robbins. We learn the victim is Vincent Thomas Avery. He had a gunshot to the ear, rough, close contact.
Yep.
We learn that the bullet is still in his skull. They take an x-ray of his skull and the bullet's still in there. So Warwick wants Doc Robbins to get that out. Warwick then also notices on the x-rays from the different parts of the body that there's something in the stomach. So Doc Robbins opens him up, pulls him out, balloons. He's a drug mule.
Yep.
So he's running scams and he's muling drugs.
I will say, whoever shot this guy, they were like, "Oh, shot him as getting in the car." I was like, he was such a hurry to leave. He didn't even want the money.
Yeah.
But presumably, I think we kind of learn later, there's a lot more money to be made from the drugs, probably.
Yes.
Anything else. So if anything, it's shocking he didn't get out, gut him like a fish and steal his stomach.
Yeah. Right. Get that payload. We have a short scene with Jim Brass with Nick, and this is where, and this, I only mention this because it comes up later, there appears to be in the tire treads that they pulled from the scene, there seems to be a nail possibly in one of the tires, because there's this weird little black void area in the tread that is most likely due to a nail being in the tire.
Took me a while to realize that there were reverses that they pulled.
Yes. And
so the lines are the gaps, and so the nail, where the nail is punctured and probably depressed inside, there's a little circle.
There's a little circle, yeah.
Yeah.
We're then with Sarah with Greg Sanders. They kind of have a conversation where Greg Sanders infers that she's upset that Grissom didn't choose her to be acting supervisor. But we learned that the pills that she found on scene are activated charcoal pills, which are often used by people who are muling drugs
swallowing
because
drugs.
yeah, it prevents like the stomach acid from eating through the balloons and them ODing on their cargo. We also learn in the scene that airline tickets were found in the pocket of the victim. And this is where Warwick has to kind of reiterate with Sarah that he's like the primary, right? Like he's the boss, he's the one leading this. You gotta like report everything to him, don't go rogue.
Or it's more like he was like upset that she would go through the evidence without him or before he was there. And all I could think is like, you've been doing this your entire time here, right? Like,
yeah, you know how she works.
Yeah, or not just how she works, but you do the same thing with Grissom.
Yeah,
like you're constantly and so there's kind of like a disconnect. They wanted to create that tension between them, which I think is important.
Yes,
but they were like inventing almost ways to do it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, like I was like, what are you upset about? Like this is how you guys basically act like this all the time.
Yeah, she's not acting necessarily abnormally from what we're told in this episode. But we go to Warwick. He finds prints on the ticket, on the stub that has Ellie, Rebecca's name on it. And he runs that fingerprint through APHIS and finds a match to Ellie Rebecca Brass.
I kind of like the reaction here because you almost need to like tip the audience off to what's about to happen.
Yeah.
But he doesn't go like, oh my God.
Yeah, like it's his daughter.
It's more like it couldn't possibly be the same Brass, right?
Yeah,
it's basically something like that is what he says. And then and so like it's supposed to get you thinking about the name that you just saw. Mm-hmm. So you make the connection in the next scene.
Yeah. So the very next scene, Warwick kind of, I put confronts, that's a very strong word, but meets Jim Brass like outside of HQ. And this is where Warwick's like, hey, do you have a daughter? And he finally like admits that he does, and he finally admits that the fingerprint is most likely does belong to his daughter, given like the name and the birth date and the last known address. But Jim Brass, trying to be responsible, puts Vega on duty for bringing her in. So he realizes that he shouldn't be the one to bring her in. He puts Vega on that detail. So we transition to Vega with Ellie. Warwick is like directing them to like go into one of the interrogation rooms, but then she sees Jim Brass. She approaches him. At first, for a moment, you're like, oh, this is going to be like a really heartwarming, like father-daughter scene. Instead, she spits on his badge.
I love this scene. I don't know why.
I mean, it's good. It's a good scene. Like because I've seen it so many times, I knew that this was coming, but I feel like the actor who plays Jim Brass played this so well. Like he looked so reserved but hopeful at the same time. And then to have basically his dreams crushed when she spits on his badge.
And then his like demeanor changes, right? And he's like, oh, I see we're leaving up where we left off. Like, you know what I mean?
He hardens a bit. He like puts on a bit of a face. Yeah. I thought this was a very well acted scene all around. So we then go to Sarah. She's documenting the money that they pulled from the con man. Ronnie enters. I thought we were done with Ronnie. We're not. Ronnie's still in it, I guess. I definitely thought that he was gone, but he's still here. And Sarah points out that there's no engraving on the bills, which is suspect. Yep. But we don't stay on this one too long. We come back to it. Don't worry, listeners.
Oh, the engraving on the collar. It's like blurred out.
Yeah, it's an engraving on the
collar. Like almost intentionally a bad engraving.
Yeah. So we're then back with Warwick with Ellie. They're in interrogation. Vega is there as well. They are, bringing up the fact that she flew to Baja with the victim. She's trying to like play it off like, yeah, whatever. Like we just like, you took me to Baja, so I just went. And she goes to like get something out of her bag, and a chip falls out that matches the chips that he was using in his.
All right, she takes cigarettes out. She's like, do you mind if I smoke?
Do you mind if I smoke? And then the chip falls out. And Warwick wants her to give permission for x-rays. And she says that she will, but only if it's him. And she says it's super cringe. And again, I know that we're not supposed to like her. I know that that's like the character they're kind of building here. But she's just like, oh, I'm not one for brothers. And I was like, oh, God.
Can I tell you?
Oh, I was like, that just makes me so uncomfortable. I don't like it.
I'm so dumb. The first time I heard that line.
Oh, what did you think she meant?
I thought she was like, oh, like Warwick looks like Lenny Kavitz's brother because he looks like him.
Oh,
like,
yeah, no.
And I was like, and I heard it the second time. I went, oh, wait, I know what she
means. You're like, God, got it. I get what she's saying. Yeah. But we learn that her boyfriend is Keith Driscoll, which becomes very important very quickly. So we have one of many Warwick and Jim Brass walk and talks. There's like several of this pairing walk and talks.
Almost as many as Vegas strip scenes.
Yeah, and Warwick is like trying to like tell Jim Brass that like it doesn't like that Ellie doesn't look good in this right now. Like she is not coming up like smelling like roses at the moment. So like, hey, heads up, like this could go in a bad direction. She's really not looking good at the moment. We go back to Sarah and Ronnie. They're looking at the bills via a scope. They confirm that they are counterfeit. They're looking at like the color of dye that prints some of the numbers, because there's this like weird thing that like printers can't do, this true green that can be done on actual bills. And so Ronnie lets Sarah know that they need to notify Secret Service of this, right? This is a matter for Secret Service to take over. Ellie is being X-rayed. Nothing is showing up. She then has another super uncomfortable line with Warwick where she's like, will you fill me up, Warwick? And I was like, oh my gosh, like, please just stop talking. This is not attractive. This is super gross. But again, I think we're supposed to also get the idea that she's like young and kind of like naive and also like and trying to like be rebellious, you know, like purposefully to like come off as like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, she's trying to like basically give him a hard time, make it uncomfortable or something. That whole series of events doesn't really go anywhere. It just kind of ends after this.
It just ends. Yeah, it just peters out. Again, this was a bit of a weird thread. We have a very short scene with Warwick and Nick. Warwick wants to call Grissom. He's starting to be like, I don't know if I can handle this. But then he decides to sack up.
To be fair to Warwick, you got to imagine, like, this is your first time maybe being shift supervisor. You've got half your team isn't there because there's only 3 of you instead of 5 of you.
Right. Yeah.
One of your major, like the chief of your police detective is personally involved with this case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a major thing. He has every right to reach out to his manager.
You are a hostile witness. So like, that's like he didn't exactly get dealt an easy hand here.
No. So we go to Jim Brass. He's driving. We see Ellie's car details kind of like flash on the screen. Like, oh, this is what the make is, and this is the license plate number. Catherine calls, tells them to be careful. Like, she's like, hey, from one parent to another, like, I know how dicey these situations can be. So like, just be careful. Of course, Jim Brass spots the car. The car like peels out in front of him and starts like streaking down the road. So there's a nice little car chase. They finally like pull off the road. Jim Brass immediately pulls out his gun, breaks the window, drags the driver out.
Nightstick at first or something, right?
Yeah, he must have had something. I don't think he used his gun to smash the window.
Yeah.
And then he releases the hitchhiker, which comes back later.
Yep.
But dicey to just be like, oh yeah, you're a hitchhiker. Bye.
Hitchhiker, spot the guest star.
Oh, okay, all right.
Which was like very visceral. Like, this is like harkening back to OG spot the guest star.
Yeah.
Purposes. I saw this person and I knew who he was.
Okay.
So I guess I mostly know him from the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show, which I watched, and he was in a couple seasons of that show. I thought I would also, like, he's been in a lot of other things that I would know him from, and I actually don't really know him from anything else other than Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so it's not a big thing, but the I didn't even write down the actor's name, but the character he played in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was Enoch, which was like, I think it was an android or a robot or something. It was very weird. But he has like his face has like a very particular like look to it.
Yeah.
And it really like, they had like a real close in, and he's like, I'm just a hitchhiker. And I was like, I know who that dude is.
I know who this person is.
And I was like, yeah.
Oh, is it Joel Stouffer?
Yes, Joel. That's
okay.
Joel Stouffer.
Stouffer is who. All right. Oh, I guess he was in Indiana Jones as well. But yeah,
I don't remember him from
seemed,
that.
Yeah, well, he was in 26 episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so that's a fair...
Like a whole season. It's a pretty big character. It was towards the end of the show. But...
All right, so I think I know who our mutual spot the guest star is going to be, but we'll get there soon. So
I didn't mention, by the way, that one of the Ortons, Mr. Orton, is... Other people might know who he is. He looked really familiar. I clicked on him. I've seen a lot of things that he's been in. He's been in a lot of movies.
Yeah, but none of them like
as like a supporting actor. He was in Forrest Gump. He was in Contact. He's Jenny's boyfriend, I guess, in Forrest Gump.
Oh, geez. Okay. I mean, he looks familiar, but not enough for me to like. But like,
I didn't really know who he was.
Yeah.
And so, but there was like, it was. I wonder if the show is heating up a little. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like they're starting to pull some bigger names.
Yeah. Get some more. Yeah, bigger like names, people who are like kind of like they're not nobodies. You know, they've been in a few things, and so you're going to get a higher rate of people who then go on to be somebody.
Yeah. So police approach. There's kind of a heated moment between Jim Brass and Vega. Then we go, speaking of the Ortons, we're back with Sarah. She's by the pool with the Ortons. They're talking about how the money is counterfeit. And Sarah shows them like the ghost on the bill, right? Like if you hold the bill up to the light, you can like see the reflection of said president in the bill, which I was like, doesn't everybody know that?
You know what? There's two things here. One, a new money, like it was like the late 90s when this started becoming a thing. There was like the new 20 came out in like the late 90s.
Yeah, so maybe this was like...
I wonder if the government, this isn't like a hidden...
the government's like, it's much harder to counterfeit money now.
No, what if the government paid for them to do an episode about counterfeiting and money and how you can tell if money is real or not? So you know what I mean? What was that? We haven't done a product placement. We haven't done a product placement in a long time.
No, it's been a long time.
Maybe the $20 bill is a secret product placement.
By the Secret Service.
Yeah.
By the government.
That's all I could think of is like, that's really good. But it's also really hilarious to watch the second time through and be like, which is probably, I guess for you, both times be like, are you explaining to Secret Service members how to tell if money is fake?
Yes. Yeah. But again, at this point, she does not, spoiler alert, she doesn't know that they're Secret Service agents at this point.
They're pretty good actors. That's all I'm saying, you know? I'm like, oh, thank you. Thanks for showing me how to tell if money is real or not. I never would have figured that out.
Which brings us to our next scene. Warwick is walking into HQ. A special agent greets him, and this is my spot, the guest star. This is
a pretty big one.
Pretty big one. This is Daniel Day Kim, probably best known for his role in Lost.
Can I before you say the other thing, tell you what I wrote down?
Yeah, sure.
The guest star, Special Agent Beckham, and I said I know this guy from the Hawaii 5-0 commercials. I've never actually watched the show.
So I recognize, I've seen a few episodes of Lost. I recognized him from Lost. He is also, I haven't watched it yet, but I've seen a lot of the trailers. He's Fire Lord
oh yes,
Ozai in the very new live action Avatar: The Last Airbender, which I've not watched yet, but I've seen a lot of previews of, and I was very excited to see that he was cast because I feel like it was a good casting decision. So this is Daniel Day Kim. He is Special Agent Beckham.
He's in a lot of episodes of Lost, by the way.
I just looked. It's like 116 episodes. I was like, holy crud, you're in a lot of episodes.
I've never watched Lost.
I saw like most of the first season, and then I got bored. And
I just thought it was funny when I saw that. I was like, oh, people are going to know him from Lost. I just know him from the commercials for Hawaii 5-0.
Yeah.
Because I've also never seen that show, but I saw he was in like every commercial for like years. I don't know what show I was watching on that channel at the time. But I saw his face.
But it was always there. So Sarah walks over, and there's kind of like another tense moment between Warwick and Sarah, and then Nick kind of comes in and he needs some stuff, and Warwick is like, I'm not Grissom, and Sarah's like, I didn't say it. And then Warwick kind of gives everybody instructions on what to do. They all go their separate ways. So Nick and Warwick are then investigating the car. They get tire treads, and they're initially, this is not like confirmed at this point, but like kind of by just looking at it, kind of confirming the patch in the tire with where the nail was in the original tire tread that they pulled from the scene. So they're pretty sure that this car was the getaway car used in the murder of the original victim.
I really, there's something really weird about the Vaseline impression.
Yeah, that was, I was like, that was strange.
I was like, is that the best thing we have for this? But maybe it's relatively inexpensive and highly effective. Yeah. It didn't look like it was highly effective.
If we have any legitimate crime scene investigators who are listening to the show, which would be amazing, by the way, that would be super cool. Please feel free to let us know if this is like a legit practice or not.
Yeah, it feels very like they would have looked this up, but who knows?
Yeah. We have a very short scene with Warwick and Vega. They're with Keith Driscoll and Keith Driscoll's lawyer. They start to talk a little bit, and basically the lawyer's like, yeah, your captain pulled a gun on him, so we're out. Bye. Like,
are we going to talk about this?
We're going to talk about this? Yeah. Nope, bye-bye. So they leave. They peace out.
I was thinking about this scene, and I was like, the problem is they don't really have much. And because the captain pulled the gun,
made it even that much worse.
The more they do, the worse it's going to look for them.
Yes.
So like the Vega's like, we just got to let this guy. We're going to get so much more trouble. If we keep pushing on this.
I think Vega makes the right decision here by being like, all right. Like, what are you going to do? So we're then with Sarah. She's with Special Agent Beckham. And he's kind of teasing her because she's like thinking that there's like this big counterfeit operation going on, based on the fact that the couple had no money in their bathing suits. Like, they were down by the pool, had no money. You can charge things to your room, Sarah. You don't need physical money when you're down by the pool at a resort. You can go, this is my room number, charge it to my room. I know, because I've done this before. Yeah.
I know we're like a little bit further away in the digital, pay world than maybe we were 20 years ago.
Fair.
But
that's
fair. The hotel thing is older.
I was saying, I feel like that's been a thing for a really long time. But Sarah is pointing out that the counterfeit bills have different serial numbers. So if this was like a lower level counterfeit operation, they'd all have the same serial number. They'd use the same plate. They'd all have the same serial number. But all of these have different serial numbers, which is leading her to believe that it's a more sophisticated investigation. This is when Special Agent Beckham admits that the Ortons are the Duffys, and they have been investigated for like fraud and counterfeit before. And he essentially is like, I'm going to take over the case. Bye. You can tag along if you want. And then Sarah's like, I'm not going to just tag along. And then she tags along.
Well, she's like, I don't tag along.
I don't tag along.
Okay.
He's like, all right. And he leaves. And then she's like, oh, all right. I'm going to grab my jacket.
Fine.
Fine. Yeah. So we have another Warwick and Jim Brass walk and talk.
I think that's not a drinking game.
I know. We be hammered. Warwick is letting Jim Brass know that Ellie's car was at the crime scene and that they had to turn Driscoll loose. So, like, it's really not looking good for Ellie right now, given the current state of affairs. Which brings us to Ellie in Jim Brass' office. He's letting her know, like, hey, don't worry about it. I'll bail you out and you can come stay with me. And she's like, I have a place. Like, Keith and I live together. So, like, thanks, no thanks. Like, you could bail me out, Ovs, but I'm not going to go to your place afterwards.
I know you're her father, but like wildly inappropriate for you to be alone with her right after she got out of like an interrogation inside the police station.
100%.
And you've been told they're going to arrest her.
Yep.
You've been told.
Yep.
Like, you cannot be relaying information to a suspect. That's what lawyers are for.
Yep.
There are channels. You are the captain.
Yep.
You are the person who's supposed to uphold the law.
Yeah.
But
he does not. He does not. Yeah. So we cut away to Warwick. He's in Grissom's office. Phone starts ringing. He answers the phone. It's Vega. There's been a 444, an officer-involved shooting, and guess which officer it involves? The one and only Jim Brass. So we transition to Jim Brass sitting on like a stone wall. He's like holding like an ice pack against his head. And while he's sitting there, a body is wheeled out of the house. Warwick and Nick arrive. Eckley's there. Also, I feel like a really weird filler. Like, they have this very brief, like, what are you doing here, Eckley? Like, your day shift. This is night shift. And Eckley's like, oh, I'm dedicated. And then Eckley never shows up again. It's never a point of contention for the rest of the episode.
Do you think it's not the same day, is it?
I don't think so.
It can't be, right?
No. Yeah, I don't think so.
I feel like the time. This is one of those episodes where the time is really weird.
Very wonky. Yeah.
It's like daytime where Catherine is when.
Well, when she
talks
him,
to Brass.
Yeah, but that would make sense, right? Like if it was during the day that he pulls over Driscoll, and then they interrogate Driscoll, and then they have to let Driscoll go, and then they inspect the car, and then they put out a warrant for Ellie, and then they arrest Ellie, and then Jim Brass bails her out. By that time, it's probably his nighttime.
Well, yeah, I was saying it's like the next day because the show starts at night, right?
Yeah. I think this is the next night.
We're a few days into. Oh, it was also daytime. I guess at the pool, right?
Yes.
With the Duffies.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was trying to think like, Grissom's been gone for a few days. Eckley maybe was trying to insert himself a little, but I really thought I thought at that moment he was going to be like, "You're being relieved."
Yeah, like you're too close to like the
it's like you've lost control.
Yeah.
Or something, and it didn't happen. And I went, "Oh,
no,
that would have been way more exciting."
Yeah, no, they didn't. Again,
there would have been a whole Grissom would have come
back.
Yeah,
hire Nick as a writer.
Grissom would have come back like, "You don't remove my people from places." I have to go ride a roller coaster now.
Yeah. So Vega briefs them. Ellie's not there. And as they're unloading Jim Brass's clip, there's one round missing.
Foreshadowing.
We go to Vega with Jim Brass in interrogation. And Jim Brass is basically like, I went looking for Ellie. And like doesn't really give much of other information up. It's just like, yeah, I went in and like was trying to find Ellie, and then something happened, and then everything got fuzzy. So Warwick is investigating or examining the gun. He's talking to Nick as he's doing so. Nick is positing, like, what cop doesn't empty their magazine, right? Like, they're trained to shoot to kill. What cop would do one shot and then call it done? Warwick, as he's examining the gun, finds blood on the back of the grip, which would indicate that the person's like skin got caught in the clip as it like moved.
Yeah, the recoil comes back, catches your skin,
catches your skin,
pinches it.
Which Jim Brass is obviously like a well-seasoned professional. Generally speaking, probably wouldn't happen to someone who knows how to handle a gun.
Yeah, they kind of tie those two things together too. Like police officers will train with their weapons, right? So they'll go to a gun range or shooting range.
Yeah.
And they'll fire, and it's like my guess is that they're not always firing 16 shots, but like
no, I would think
more than 1, 3, 5. They're trained to fire some number in a burst, and holding the gun the right way, drawing the gun the right way, right? And all these things.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that they can respond is important. So yeah, he would never, at his age, he would have probably done this 1,000 times and never would get his hand cut.
Yeah. So this brings us to Warwick and Vega. They're with Jim Brass. Warwick wants to see his hands because he wants to see, does he have like a wound on his hand from the grip clipping him? He does not, but he takes his badge, which we'll learn later why he takes the badge, but he takes the badge into evidence.
I didn't get that at first. When they did it, I was like, oh, okay.
To be fair, I think the first watch through this time, I sort of forgot why he did it. And then when they explained it, I was like, oh, right. Yeah, duh. That like makes total sense. And especially why he took it in for evidence and didn't just like, I'm taking your badge away from, like he put it into an evidence bag, like used a pen to like push it into an evidence bag to not contaminate it.
Pens are the ultimate anti-fingertips.
Yeah, there's no germs or contaminants on a pen.
Carry some, forceps on you or something if you're going to use pens that often.
Yeah. So we're back with Sarah and the special agent Beckham. They are at the money printing operation. And Sarah wants to see the burn plate, so they're kind of like seeing how that's working.
Sarah knows an awful lot about counterfeiting money.
She does know a lot about counterfeiting money. I wonder, like, in her last assignment, like, was this a big deal? But
I thought she was going to get poached. I thought they were like, oh, we would like to recruit you and hire you.
But she fairly is like, where's the money? Like, this is a gigantic operation. It is obviously, like, well established. Where's the money? Oh, there is no money. They're all with the Secret Service. You passed the test, Sarah. Woo!
You could have done. Like, why did they even bring her there?
You could have spent time trying to solve legitimate cases, and instead we just like led you on this wild goose chase for like 2 days. So feel good about that, Sarah.
I mean, I get what they were doing. The last bit where they were like, oh, you can come along. No, you can't come along. We're going to take care of it. Don't worry about it. You don't need to know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
we're not going to bring you, and then like this awfully compliant criminal is going to just keep handing you over all of his evidence.
Yeah, here you go.
Here's my bird plates. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
And so you could just ask questions while the people who are experts in this sit around and say nothing. It's like, why would they even want to do this? Like, I get when he was like, oh, what do you want to do with the money? Trying to make sure that she doesn't want to try to keep it or steal it
Yeah.
or something like that. But like, he should never have like asked her to come along. And also, like, you got to keep using this place. You're not moving all of this equipment.
Right. Yeah, this is like a major operation here.
It's not a quality control N of 1.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. It's not one printer that you can easily just transfer to another spot. Yeah. So we gotta leave this storyline behind. We are with Warwick. He's with Greg Sanders. This is where we learn that Ellie and Jim Brass are not, at least biologically, related. We also learn that the blood on the gun is not Ellie's, Keith, the boyfriend's, or Jim Brass's. So who does his blood on the gun belong to? Oh, wouldn't you know? Warwick and Jim Brass go to confront said person because it's Marty, the hitchhiker that Captain Brass just let walk away from the scene, no questions asked.
Did you think how, like, I thought it was weird at the time, but especially coming back to now, did you think like how awfully weird it was that they just let him go?
Yes.
I feel like the first time I watched running drugs.
Yeah.
You have an unknown murder. He could have had the weapon on him.
Like, because the whole thing is like this guy being like, oh, I'm a hitchhiker. You could have been like, okay, great. Well, we still need to question you. Like, let's find out if you're actually just a hitchhiker.
Don't worry. My only thought was that he wanted him to go so there wasn't a witness because he was going to try to rough this guy up.
Yes. I think that is what we're supposed to believe, is that like if given the opportunity, Jim Brass might have bestowed some harm against Keith Driscoll, and he didn't want somebody else there to be a witness to it.
But after all of that, so the reason I bring this up, so after all of that, after shooting somebody, after being somewhere he probably shouldn't be related to the case, why is he there?
Oh, why is he at the house?
Why is he following up with another suspect in this case?
Oh yeah, Jim Brass shouldn't be there. There's no way that Jim Brass should be there.
I mean, other than the fact that he's the captain, there's no one to relieve him.
Yeah. But, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's like Vega should have called the captain of the day shift on Brass.
Yeah, on Brass, and had him do it. Yeah. So Warwick does like a pretty fun little sneaky sneak, and he's like, oh, I want to shake the hand of the guy that like tricked our captain. And so the guy finally agrees to shake Warwick's hand. That's when he like turns his hand over and is like, oh, look at that. You have like the little nick where you would probably have it if you didn't know how to fire a gun.
Is that a sneaky sneak? Couldn't they have just handcuffed him and looked?
Yeah, but they wanted to make it sneaky sneak times.
You gotta give Warwick his moment to shine.
Yeah, we learned that Marty killed Driscoll to take over the drug ring. So the drug ring must have been pretty profitable. He allegedly killed Driscoll to take over the drug ring, and he's gonna OD. He basically is like, oh, I took laxatives, and they're like, oh, crud. And Jim Brass delays calling the medics, but finally calls medics so they can get him medical attention. And so we go to, this isn't really a walk and talk because they're just in the hallway, but we go back to Warwick and Jim Brass at the hospital. Warwick returns the badge and basically says like, hey, sorry, like this is the only way to get Ellie's DNA. This is why I had to take your badge. And he also is like, is this any of your business, Warwick? Warwick is like, oh, you didn't tell me she was adopted. Does it matter? Does this matter to the case? I feel like this is a really weird thing for him to be discussing with Jim Brass.
I think it would be fine if he was like, you know.
I just feel like coming from a family that has several adopted family members.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have to tell you anything. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's also weird to like, what if he doesn't know? Right? We learn. Like, what if he doesn't want to talk about it? What if she doesn't? You know what I mean? Like all these things. Like
that's what I mean. Like
it's if he was gonna find out anyways, I'd be like, hey, you're my friend. There's something you need. The conversation would start with, there's something you need to know, and I don't know if you know or not already, but you're gonna find out from some, like, it's gonna get out. I want you to hear it from me first.
Yeah, like it'll be in the case file. So like,
this is what, but that's not what he is. He's like, how come you didn't tell me you adopted your daughter? How about if I didn't tell you, it's none of your business.
It's not your business. Like, it's not your business, Warwick. Like, what are you doing?
Warwick is about as good a leader as Grissom. And as the guy who tried to go to the drug league ring, because he was also so good at running drugs, he poisoned himself.
Yeah. Everyone is just doing a stellar job in this episode. This is a stellar job in this episode.
I had some management training at work I took today, and these people are making me feel really good about
You're like, I got this. Like, I know what I'm doing here. So we learn Ellie is in fact not adopted. She is quote unquote the mailman's baby, but she does not know that. So she thinks that Jim Brass is her biological father. And Jim Brass is basically like, don't tell her, right? Like, you're already being rude enough inquiring if she's adopted or not. How about you just keep this to yourself? And
you don't tell her when you're gallivanting around with her, because she's been trying to climb that tree for a whole episode.
And now her boyfriend's dead. So like,
newly single, rebound,
So we then have Jim Brass approaching Ellie. We learn that she never went back to the apartment that night. I don't know what that was supposed to signify. Like, I found this to be a very weird exchange, and I feel like I was missing something, and I was like, am I just tired watching this episode? I don't know. But she never goes back to the apartment that night. And Jim Brass
is like her boyfriend is a murderer. Don't.
Yeah, because I guess Jim Brass says that, like, you're better than that, and she goes, no, I'm not. And I maybe this is supposed to signify that she does think that she's better than that, so she doesn't go back to it. Maybe that's what it is. So, see, sometimes it's nice to talk these things through with your friends. But Jim Brass is like, come back with me, like, I care about you so much, and she's just like, it's way too late. Like, we're way past this.
You've burned too many bridges, Dad.
Yeah, like, I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna fly to New Jersey, go spend time with Mom. Sorry.
It's really, they don't drum on it, but I think the way they told the story, you're intentionally supposed to reflect on, she wasn't your biological daughter. Did that make you more distant of a father?
Yeah.
On top of probably being the workaholic.
Yes, that he like is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good. I didn't think about that, but yeah, like, did that cause an additional distance that compiled on top of his crazy work schedule?
And I'm not a parent out there, but I think that you've seen with other people in your life, people are often, I don't want to say they take the kids for granted, but your small children love you unconditionally and want you to be around all the time. And then they get to a certain age or teenage age, and then they start to want to be around you less.
Yes.
And you can imagine a world where like Jim Brass like wasn't around much and his daughter was young and took that for granted perhaps. Yeah. And then when she got older, she would use that would turn into resentment. Mm-hmm. Right. And then she would want to be around him. And then he realized, oh no, but I do love this person. They're my daughter.
Right. They're my daughter regardless
my
of
biological kin. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so it's like, you can't take that back, it takes a lot of time and energy to work on those things. And clearly they never did that. And so, but yeah, just when someone shows up, it's like, yeah, she's moving on. She's going back. Apparently mom, she's so good with mom. And she's going back there, and it's tough for Jim Brass, but I think,
another well-acted scene though. I feel like especially Jim Brass, is the actor who plays Jim Brass, did a really great job in this scene. We then have a much more lighthearted scene with Warwick and Sarah in the hallway. Warwick is kind of like teasing her about fake money, and then the shift is over and she's like, oh, look at that, like, you're one of us again, like, you're back in the fold of us, like normal CSIs.
Well, this is the other part with the timing thing. I was like, how do you know when he stops being the boss?
I don't know,
because like this is already like the third or fourth shift on this case, right? Because Grissom was allegedly at a conference for several days in Duluth, Minnesota, or wherever Duluth is. I don't actually know. Somewhere in the Midwest.
Speaking of Grissom, he returns. His cockroaches had stage fright. They did not perform well. But he does sit down with Warwick, and he wants to hear all about how the shifts, multiple plural, went. And so they sit down, and that's what ends our scene, is them kind of sitting down and Warwick giving him the lowdown of what happened. So Nick, What did you think about today's episode?
I actually liked the episode a lot. I don't know. I thought it was pretty fun. Although reviewing it with you just now, I was like, there were a few more things, but that were a little annoying. I think that it's been a while since we had a lot of character development.
Yes.
And I think I really enjoyed that both for Brass and for Warwick.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was kind of like I felt like I didn't really know what was going to happen, where things were going, and that was always super entertaining. So it's like I think there's like a few boxes that I like to check to say an episode's good, and this checked just enough. I think for me, like, oh yeah, this is a good episode. Not a great episode, but definitely a good. I put on par with the last episode we watched.
Okay, yeah, I feel similar. Good episode, not a great episode. I think I like you. I love character development and backstory, so I was very happy that we, are kind of beginning fleshing out Jim Brass as a deeper character than we really have before. And I think the actor who plays Jim Brass did amazing. Like, I feel like he had several scenes where he emoted a lot of feelings without being over the top, and I think that can be difficult to do sometimes.
Yeah.
So I think he did a really great job. I don't really like that they just like sent Sarah on like a random goose chase. I love Sarah. Yeah, that kind of annoyed me that they were just like, oh yeah, don't work on a real case. Go work on this fun goose chase. Yeah, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Have fun, Sarah. Bye.
I wanted there to be something meatier at the end. That's why I said like, I wanted them to like offer her a job or something.
Something.
And her be like, no, I like where I am.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, and like, how cool would it have been to have that juxtaposition of Sarah being frustrated because Grissom didn't make her supervisor and put Warwick in charge, and then butting heads with him.
Yeah.
Come to this new greener field, but we will appreciate all your knowledge and talent and so forth. And her say, it's not always perfect, but I really like where I am right now.
Yeah.
How much more would that have elevated this episode and her storyline? Because she did. I love the things that she was doing. Right? They had her like kicking ass and taking names throughout the episode, and sometimes I feel like they're really bad at that with her character.
Yes, I think so for sure.
And so, like, again, that's one of the things I liked about the episode is that everyone was doing these different, unique contributions to what was going on.
Yeah.
And I like that she kind of stridently went out and struck on her own and had the side case. But then, it was nothing came of it.
Yeah.
And so then it doesn't have the same level of payoff.
Yeah.
Satisfaction. That's the word. But at least they had that for her. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So again, a few small changes. Time travel, hire me.
Yeah.
I bet you this show could win Emmys.
Maybe.
I assume it's won a bunch of Emmys.
We'll see if the next episode is an Emmy winner when we return. No, I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm just trying to be funny and connect this to our next part.
I was like, is it famous? Is it like a famous episode?
Not that I know of. But we'll be back next week with season 2, episode 11, Organ Grinder. In the meantime, fun fact: we started a Patreon.
Oh, yeah.
Yay! So I will link it in the show description, but you can also just go to patreon.com and search for Who Are You, a CSI podcast. Right now, we only have one tier. We're not quite sure what we're going to be offering you're going to get a shout out on the show, so that's pretty cool. But beyond a shout out on the show, we're not quite sure as far as like bonus content and other fun stuff yet. But would love to hear from you guys. Like, what would you like to see as far as bonus content goes? Keep in mind, we both have full-time jobs in addition to doing this podcast. So there's like only so much more bonus content that we can do. But if you guys are willing to support us, we want to be there for you. So let us know. So we're on Patreon. Feel free to join as a CSI level 1 on Patreon for $5 a month and help support the podcast. Help us with like hosting costs and the software to record and all that good stuff. So we'd really appreciate it. And at the moment, we're staying ad-free. So, like, we're not getting any ad revenue. You're able to listen to these episodes without any ads. So that would be nice if we could keep doing that for a while, too. So support us on Patreon. But you can also find us on Facebook at Who Are You, a CSI podcast. We're also on Twitter /X, Instagram, and Threads at Who Are You, CSI pod. You can also email us at whoareyoucsipod@gmail.com. But in the meantime, we will talk to you next week.
No spoilers.
No spoilers.